August 2nd, 2016. It was like any other summer evening. Karina Vetrano, a young woman full of life, laced up her running shoes. She was heading out for her daily jog, a familiar route through Spring Creek Park in Queens, New York. She loved the tranquility of nature, the way it cleared her mind. Little did she know this routine run would be her last. Hours passed. The sun began its descent. Karina's father, Philip, grew anxious. His daughter was late. He tried calling her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. A knot of worry tightened in his stomach. Something was wrong. He could feel it. Philip contacted Karina's boyfriend, who immediately joined the search. Together they raced to the park, their voices echoing Karina's name into the growing darkness. As darkness enveloped the park, the search became increasingly desperate. Every rustling leaf, every snap of a twig sent shivers down their spines. Then a gruesome discovery. Karina's lifeless body was found hidden in the tall grass just off the jogging path. Her clothes were torn, her body brutally beaten and strangled. The peace of the familiar park shattered, replaced by the chilling reality of a nightmare. The news of Karina Vetrano's murder sent shockwaves through New York City. Who could commit such a heinous act, and why? The search for Karina's killer became a top priority for the NYPD. The community lived in fear, their once safe haven transformed into a place of darkness and danger. This was no longer just a tragedy, it was a mystery that demanded to be solved. A solitary scene, isolating the crime. The area where Karina's body was discovered became a frenzied hive of activity. Every inch of the surrounding area was scoured for any trace of the killer. Detectives worked tirelessly, gathering evidence, photographing the scene and collecting samples. The weight of the task at hand hung heavy in the air. A young woman's life cut short, her future stolen. Silent witnesses, searching for clues. The park itself seemed to hold its breath. Trees stood as silent witnesses to the horror. Detectives carefully documented every detail, hoping to find something, anything, that could lead them to the perpetrator. The pressure mounted with each passing hour as the public clamored for answers and justice for Karina. The investigation was just beginning, but one thing was clear: this was no random act of violence. The weight of evidence, gathering fragments of horror. The evidence collected painted a grim picture of Karina's final moments. Her clothing, torn and disheveled, bore witness to a violent struggle. Defensive wounds on her hands and arms showed her desperate attempt to fight back. And then there was the DNA. Samples taken from Karina's body and the crime scene offered a glimmer of hope in the darkness. Could this be the key to identifying Karina's killer? Section 4. A community shrouded in fear. The spreading shadow. As news of the murder spread, fear gripped the community of Howard Beach. Parents kept their children close, joggers avoided the once familiar paths, and the shadow of Karina's death loomed large. Candlelight vigils were held in Karina's honor, her smiling face illuminated by flickering flames, a stark contrast to the darkness that had consumed her. The search for her killer continued relentlessly, fueled by a community's grief and a family's unwavering determination to find justice for their beloved Karina. Section 1. Dead-end trails. The frustrating search for a match. Weeks turned into months. The investigation dragged on. The DNA evidence, so promising at first, led to a frustrating dead end. No match was found in the national database. The killer's identity remained a haunting mystery. The investigators refused to give up. They pored over every detail of the case. They chased down every lead, however small or insignificant it seemed. But the breakthrough they so desperately needed eluded them. The killer seemed to have vanished into thin air, leaving behind only a trail of heartbreak and questions. Section 2. A glimmer of hope. Familial DNA testing offers a lead. As months turned into a year, the investigation took an unexpected turn. The NYPD decided to employ a new tool in their arsenal: familial DNA testing. This controversial technique allowed investigators to search for partial DNA matches. They weren't looking for the killer's exact profile anymore, but for someone related to him. It was a long shot, but it was a shot worth taking. The results came back with a hit. A partial match to a man who had once been arrested for a minor offense. His name was Chanel Lewis. Section 3. In the crosshairs, Chanel Lewis emerges as a suspect. Chanel Lewis, a 20-year-old man from Brooklyn, became the prime suspect. Investigators learned that Lewis had a history of mental health issues. He had no prior convictions for violent crimes, but his behavior raised red flags. Detectives placed Lewis under surveillance, watching his every move. They were waiting for him to make a mistake, to reveal any connection to Karina's murder. The pressure was on to build a solid case against him. The fate of the investigation rested on their ability to connect the dots. Section 4. A race against time, building a case on circumstantial evidence. The investigation team faced a daunting task. The DNA evidence, while significant, was not a smoking gun. It only placed Lewis at the crime scene. They needed more to secure a conviction. Detectives returned to the neighborhood where Lewis lived. They scoured the area, looking for any physical evidence that could tie him to the crime. Days turned into nights as they worked around the clock, their determination fueled by the memory of Karina and the desire to bring her killer to justice. Section 1. The Confession. A controversial admission of guilt. After hours of interrogation, Chanel Lewis cracked. He confessed to killing Karina Vetrano. His words sent shockwaves through the investigation. He described the attack in chilling detail, matching evidence found at the scene. But something wasn't right. His confession was inconsistent at times, contradicting known facts. His lawyer argued that Lewis was coerced, that his mental state was fragile. The confession, once seen as a slam dunk for the prosecution, now faced serious scrutiny. It became a central point of contention in the case against Chanel Lewis. Section 2. Seeds of Doubt. Defense challenges the validity of the confession. Lewis's defense team argued that his confession was unreliable. They pointed to his limited intellectual abilities and his history of mental health challenges. They claimed he was pressured by detectives eager to close the high-profile case. The defense also questioned the timing of the confession. It came after hours of interrogation without a lawyer present. The judge ruled the confession admissible, but the damage was done. The seeds of doubt had been sown. The trial was far from over. Section 3. A question of consent, examining the DNA collection methods. The defense team then challenged the DNA evidence. They argued that Lewis's DNA was obtained without a warrant. Lewis had provided a DNA sample years earlier after a minor arrest. The defense claimed police should have obtained a new warrant for this case. The prosecution countered that the DNA was taken legally. They argued that Lewis had voluntarily given his DNA in the past and that it was permissible to use it in this investigation. The judge ultimately sided with the prosecution, but the controversy over its collection cast a shadow over the case. Section 4. The prosecution's narrative, piecing together a case. Despite the challenges, the prosecution pushed forward. They painted a picture of a brutal random attack. They highlighted Lewis's confession despite its flaws. They argued that his words matched the physical evidence. The prosecution also presented witnesses who placed Lewis in the area. Neighbors who recognized him, surveillance footage capturing his presence. Piece by piece, they wove a narrative of guilt. But would it be enough to convince the jury? Section 5. A community divided public opinion on the trial. The trial became a media sensation. Public opinion was sharply divided. Some believed Lewis was guilty, a monster who deserved the harshest punishment. Others had doubts, questioning the validity of the confession and DNA evidence. The trial exposed racial tensions in New York City. Lewis, a young black man, was accused of killing a young white woman. The case became a lightning rod for discussions about race, class, and the criminal justice system. As the trial progressed, the city held its breath waiting for the verdict. Section 1. Inside the jury room, Deliberation and Doubt. The jury retired to deliberate, Lewis's fate in their hands. Days turned into a grueling week. The weight of their responsibility hung heavy. The evidence was largely circumstantial, the confession clouded by uncertainty. Some jurors remained unconvinced, troubled by inconsistencies. The pressure mounted as the world watched and waited. The family of Karina Vetrano prayed for justice, while Lewis's family maintained his innocence. Everyone held their breath. The fate of Chanel Lewis hung in the balance. Section 2. A verdict delivered, justice or a miscarriage. After days of deliberation, the verdict was in, guilty on all counts. Karina's family erupted in tears, a mixture of relief and grief washing over them. For them, justice had been served. But questions lingered. Was this a clear-cut case of justice, or had the pressure for a conviction outweighed reasonable doubt? The verdict sparked protests and debates about race and the justice system. It was a verdict that brought closure to some, but left others questioning the very foundations of the legal system. Section 3. A life sentence, the price of conviction. This chapter delves into the profound consequences of a single conviction, exploring the ripple effects on everyone involved. Chanel Lewis was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom was filled with a tense silence as the judge delivered the verdict, a moment that would forever alter the lives of many. His legal team vowed to appeal, maintaining his innocence. They meticulously reviewed every piece of evidence, hoping to find a breakthrough that could overturn the conviction. But for now, he would spend the rest of his days behind bars. The cold, unyielding walls of the prison became his new reality, a stark contrast to the life he once knew. The case had a profound impact on all involved. Faces in the courtroom reflected a mix of relief, sorrow, and disbelief, each person grappling with their own emotions. Karina's family found some measure of peace, knowing her killer was held accountable. Visiting her grave became a ritual, a way to keep her memory alive and find solace in the justice served. But their lives were forever changed, scarred by the brutality of her loss. The memories of happier times were now tinged with a deep, unending sorrow. Lewis's family grappled with the verdict, refusing to believe he was capable of such a heinous act. They attended every court hearing, their faces etched with determination and hope. They continued to fight for him, clinging to the hope that one day the truth would prevail. Their gatherings were filled with discussions about the case, each family member offering support and encouragement. The case served as a stark reminder of the complexities of the criminal justice system and the human cost of both violence and the search for truth. It highlighted the delicate balance between justice and mercy, and the enduring impact of a single moment of violence on countless lives. Section 4. Lingering questions. The search for closure continues. Years later, Karina Vetrano's memory lives on. Her murder served as a wake-up call for the city, a reminder that even in familiar places, darkness can lurk. But the case also left behind unanswered questions. Doubts about the confession, the DNA evidence, and whether true justice was served. For some, the verdict brought a sense of closure, but for others, the search for answers continues. The chilling jogging path murder of Karina Vetrano remains a haunting reminder of the fragility of life, the importance of seeking justice, and the lingering questions that can haunt us long after a verdict is reached. Section 1. Scars on the landscape, the enduring impact of tragedy. The serene beauty of Spring Creek Park belies the deep scars left by a tragic event that forever changed its essence. Time marches on, but the memory of Karina Vetrano lingers. Her presence is felt in every corner of the park, a silent echo of a life cut short. The once carefree atmosphere of Spring Creek Park is forever altered. Joggers who once ran with a sense of freedom now move with a heightened awareness, a subtle tension in their steps. Her tragic death is a stark reminder of the vulnerability we all share. It serves as a poignant reminder that life is fragile and can be irrevocably changed in an instant. The community of Howard Beach is forever scarred by the brutality of her loss. The collective grief has woven a tapestry of sorrow and solidarity, binding the community together in shared mourning. Yet from the darkness shines a beacon of love and resilience. The community has rallied, finding strength in unity and hope in remembrance. Karina's family has transformed their grief into action. They have channeled their sorrow into a powerful force for change, advocating tirelessly for park safety and community awareness. Their unwavering dedication to honoring her memory is an inspiration. They have become a symbol of resilience, showing that even in the face of unimaginable loss, one can find a way to make a positive impact. Through their advocacy, they work tirelessly to ensure that no other family endures their pain. Their efforts have led to tangible changes, such as improved park lighting and self-defense classes, making the park a safer place for everyone. Their efforts are a testament to the power of the human spirit to find purpose even in the face of unimaginable tragedy. The legacy of Karina Vetrano lives on, not just in the memories of those who loved her, but in the positive changes that have been made in her name. Section 2. Unanswered questions, unsettled truths, the ongoing search for justice. The quest for justice is often a long and winding road, fraught with complexities and uncertainties. While Chanel Lewis remains behind bars, questions about the case persist. The controversial confession, the DNA evidence, and the lack of a definitive motive continue to fuel debate. The case has sparked intense scrutiny and divided public opinion. Many have delved into the details, examining every piece of evidence and every statement made. Books and articles have been written, each offering a different perspective on the case. Protests have erupted, with people demanding answers and justice. Some believe justice was served, pointing to the evidence presented in court and the jury's decision. They argue that the legal process worked as it should and that the verdict was fair and just. Others harbour lingering doubts about Lewis's guilt. They question the reliability of the confession, the handling of the DNA evidence, and the overall investigation. Interviews with skeptics reveal a deep mistrust in the system and a belief that the truth has yet to be uncovered. The case became a lightning rod for discussions about race, policing, and the complexities of the criminal justice system. It has highlighted the disparities and biases that can exist within the system and has prompted calls for reform and greater accountability. Legal experts have weighed in, offering their insights and opinions on the case. They discuss the intricacies of the legal process, the challenges of obtaining a fair trial, and the broader implications for the criminal justice system. For Karina's loved ones, the wounds of loss run deep. Their grief is compounded by the ongoing questions and the public scrutiny of the case. Each visit to her grave is a painful reminder of the life that was taken too soon. Their search for closure is complicated by the lingering questions and the knowledge that no verdict can truly erase their pain. Memorial events are held in her honor, but the sense of loss remains ever present. The knowledge that no verdict can truly erase their pain is a heavy burden to bear. The family continues to mourn, seeking solace in their memories and in each other. The chilling jogging path murder of Karina Vetrano serves as a stark reminder that justice is not always easy to define. The path where she was found has become a symbol of the tragedy, marked by crime scene tape and the memories of that fateful day. And that even in the aftermath of tragedy, the search for answers and accountability can continue for years to come. The scales of justice may tip slowly, but the pursuit of truth and justice is a journey that must be undertaken, no matter how long it takes.